Listen, I've been scared this whole time. And I know it doesn't seem like it, but I've been literally freaked out every step of the way because there's different levels to it. And so, what I think is just important is you surround yourself with the right people who are thinking a lot bigger than you, and what you thought was scary before becomes a lot less scary because you know that there's this whole world out there that's completely another level.
Everything is possible, just hustle.
The $1 Million Hustle Podcast, where we keep it real, unstated entrepreneurship wisdom. Learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, aka Billionaire.
Everything is possible, just hustle. Everything is possible, just hustle.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Billy the Kid, aka BDK, aka Billionaire in this mug. And I want to welcome you to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, where you're going to learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. This is only for the minority of 3% action takers, baby. So if you're in the 97%, do not hit play on this podcast. If you don't want to change your life for the better, don't hit play. Plain and simple. That's how we're doing it. And today is no exception of that, man. Shout out to Michael McDonald with Rocket Homebuyers. I mean, it is crazy. Every time I speak to Michael, man, I'm literally ready to run over a wall, man, or some crazy stuff. Just the mindset of this guy, man, and all the stuff he's accomplished. But just his mindset and just everything that he's done is just such an amazing story. And if you want to hear about investing in yourself, and if you're not sure if you should put down a little bit of money to invest in yourself, I mean, his story will literally make you want to invest, because that's all he did, man. That's all he knew. But before we get into this great episode, make sure you guys go to billythekid.com and leave me your email, and I'm going to send you a free autograph CD. Actually, I got some in here ready to go. So leave me your email and I'll mail you that. Also, order a copy of my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable. And if you don't want an autographed copy, shame on you. But you could get it on Amazon. You could get it on Barnes & Noble and everywhere else books are available. So go grab a copy, or at billythekid.com, get you an autographed copy. The Get Uncomfortable Mastermind is doing great things. And here soon, I'm going to have some testimonials for you guys to listen to so many great stories, success stories that these dudes are just killing it, man. And if you're interested in joining the mastermind, I am opening one more spot. So go to info@billythekid.com and hit me up, because we're keeping this small and we're keeping it very well connected, right? Like very private. So we only have one spot. So info@billythekid.com if you're interested. But with that being said, I think I am ready to dive in, man, because his story is powerful. So here is Michael McDonald. Let's get it. Vámonos. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Billy the Kid, aka BDK. Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle Podcast, and I am pumped today because and it's always great to talk to this man right here, man. He is a legend, and I'm here to present you guys Michael McDonald. How you doing, buddy?
Billy, what is up, my friend? I am fantastic. I really appreciate the opportunity, man. It was just a few weeks ago, it feels like, since we did this on the flip side of the picture here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, those of you checking out this podcast, make sure you guys go check out the podcast that we did with Michael, the Virtual Millionaire. I've gotten some good feedback off of that. So it's if you plug it in real quick, man, let them know where to find it.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can check us out on YouTube. It's the Virtual Millionaire Show, on all the platforms that podcasts are. So iTunes, Spotify, you name it, the Virtual Millionaire Show, how to start, scale a real estate business. And so I'm excited to interview here today on your show, man.
Yeah, no, I am pumped, man, because every time me and you talk, I feel like there's always I always leave ready to take over the world and go get some deals going. So let's start with with a segment of the show where I'd like to have you give us, and I know you're a reader because even on your social media, there's times where, you know, you post a book that you're reading, and it's funny. There's a lot of books that you post that I'm like, man, you know, I've messaged you on some of them, or some of them that I read, and I'm like, man, yeah, that's a great book. So let's start with that. What's one book that to make a book of the week that has changed your life, or that has really made you think and kind of go along with that book and to this day, maybe, or something even fresh now that you've read currently?
Gotcha, man. So yeah, you know, reading always wasn't a big importance for me. I'm just a trailer park boy, you know, and in all jokes aside, I did grow up in a trailer park, and I always thought reading was for like the nerds, right? And a book that I picked up early on when I started my entrepreneurial adventure was Millionaire Success Habits. And one of the biggest things that I think, you know, most people who are successful have is they have a lot of discipline and they have a lot of habits. And it's the compound. There it is, man. Dean
Boom, it's
Graziosi.
right here. Yeah, it's a great book. The audio is great too. So
Yep. So Dean Graziosi is just a legend. Number one, he's a stud in real estate, but he also is big on personal development. He's partners with Tony Robbins, and he was one of the first, I would say, mentors without actually having him personally mentor me that I had met early on in my career at a conference. And I just started studying, like, hey, what do these guys do? How do they act? How do they show up? What are these habits that these people talk about? And I just started implementing them. And honestly, that changed my life, because you can go from having these maybe bad habits or just not even really having habits or a routine. And if you start to implement those things, it slowly but surely changes your whole world. And that's what happened for me. I went from not doing certain things to being very disciplined. And that's what it takes to run a successful business, and to be in shape, to have a healthy marriage, to do all these things that a lot of people might forget about when they start a business, or they might forget about as they're going through their life on a hamster wheel.
I love that you touched on marriage, for example, here. I mean, you killed it on a lot of different points, but that marriage factor, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I first started my path, my journey, I would explain it to my wife that it's not just, and I think most people have this theory that all you do is study money and financials, right, and all these crazy things. But if they only knew that literally the books, that's probably like the last thing they talk about, you know, if you really think about it, even if the topic has something with money on it. So I love that you talked about that. And before we continue on, because there was a lot of stuff that I'm going to ask you about that you mentioned based on that book. Great book, by the way. Can we take it back to your story for some of the people that might be listening that haven't heard your story? Where are you from? And you mentioned Trailer Park Boy. I love that. If you could touch a little bit of where you're coming from and kind of how you got into real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for people to know where somebody came from before we get into what they've accomplished. And so, you know, for me, man, I grew up in a village, and I can call it a village because it literally is. It's a town of 300 in Bellwood, Nebraska, is where I was born and raised. And I grew up in a trailer park, the only trailer park in town. And, you know, things are different. We definitely we were not spoon fed. We did not have everything, but we didn't have it terrible. You know, I didn't come from, you know, dirt poor necessarily, but we kind of lived that middle class life where, you know, it seemed like everything was great, but money was always definitely, I would say, an issue and a challenge. And so that's where I grew up. And eventually we moved into a regular house, and I went to college in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is where I initially kind of settled down. And so to kind of fast forward a little bit from me getting told to go to school to get a job, I ended up in Lincoln. I studied nutrition for a couple years, and I got the corporate job. And I was working at a hospital, and it really didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I liked nutrition. I was passionate about health and wellness. And I did that and realized that it wasn't providing the income that I knew that my family deserved and needed. And I wasn't okay with that. And so one day, my friend said, "Hey man, you seem entrepreneurial. Why don't you come check out this event with me?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it. What do I have to lose?" Right. So I went to this event. It was downtown at I think it was the Embassy, and it was how to make money in real estate with little to no money down. And I said, "This sounds amazing. It almost sounds too good to be true, to be honest." And what ended up happening at that event is my wife could tell that I was excited, and I had no family in real estate whatsoever, but real estate sounded good to me, and it sounded like a lot of things that people do to build wealth. So long story short, they sold me on the dream, and I put $1,000 on a credit card. Did not have $1,000 at that time, living paycheck to paycheck. And we decided that this is going to be my education above and beyond the associate's degree that I already had in nutrition. All right. So I guess kind of going from there, we ended up learning, implementing the materials that we were taught. And then we got sold on the next event. And they said, "Hey, you need to come to this 3-day workshop. And if you really want to be serious, you need to go all in and invest in your future." And what that looked like was another $20,000. And my buddy who came and actually convinced me to go to that event said, "Man, we should do this." And I'm like, "How are we going to pay for it? I don't have any money. I literally don't. I already have $1,000 on the credit card, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for this." And then they helped us. They said, "Well, you got decent credit. Why don't you raise this money, and you can use the 0% interest credit cards for 16 months to go ahead and pay for the $20,000 mentorship." I think it was actually 25. And at that point in time, man, I had a decision to make. I was either going to continue on the path of what I was doing. And at that time, I've never been like a depressed person, but I was definitely not happy. I wasn't like thrilled about, barely making my bills and just covering my bases. And I was on the phone with my wife at that point in time. I said, "Hey, here's where we're at. I have a decision to make. What do you think?" And she said, "Well, that sounds like a huge decision, and that's a lot of money. But if you think it's worth it and you want to go for it, then I trust you." And honestly, man, it gives me chills thinking about it, because it's crazy to think that I put 20 some $1,000 on a credit card at the time, and I had zero money in my bank account. And so I did that, and I got home and we were off to the races. But before then, and by the way, stop me if you want me to stop. But
No, I'm amazed that every time I hear your story, I'm like, man, and I got a lot of questions, so keep going.
Okay, well, this is very important, so everyone pay close attention. I get home from this event, and the very first thing that my wife tells me, and she, by the way, knew this information when she gave me the go ahead to make this decision to put this money on this credit card. She says, come downstairs. I have to show you something. I'm like freaked out. I'm like, "Oh, I've never had this conversation before. What do we have to show me?" And she opens up our laundry room, and there was a packet, or like a basket, with all of this stuff in there. And it was a pregnancy test. And it was to tell me that we were expecting, and I was going to be a new dad on top of just buying a new house, being in student loan debt, and $25,000 of credit card debt, and not having any idea how I was going to pay this back, aside from now I know how to do real estate, or I'm learning how to do real estate. And so that's where it all began. And I'll tell you what, man, I was motivated to figure this out. And I started off learning how to wholesale real estate, and the rest is history.
Man, no, every time I hear that story, Michael, I get chills too, man, because it's crazy. You took so many chances, man, and we're gonna touch on those. But that what I love the most, it's this concept that I that I've been loving to touch on, and it makes sense with your story is, for example, not going so far, right? Like the book that you just talked about, the Millionaire Success Habits, for example. It's a $25 book, we'll call it. And the crazy thing is that people want it now, right? Like everybody's searching for the current time. Like I want everything now. As soon as I read this book, I want to become a millionaire. And if they only knew how these things work, for example, with this book, it's $25, but you can make $10 million out of this book. It's not going to happen as soon as you read it. There's so many books that I've read that I still haven't even gotten to the actual action of it, but I already know that book made me that much more money. So I love it. And the reason why I bring that up, Michael, is because you literally did just that. I mean, you put $1,000 down without having any money. And also just the 20,000 that you went after that. If we could touch before we dive in a little deeper on that, how do you and your wife work it out to have that such a great support system? And from the beginning, it sounds like because that's a lot of money. So if you could maybe give us some action or pointers that our listeners can take, where they could have their wife or significant other to support them or husband.
Yeah, man, and that's a great point because, as you guys probably heard, that's a huge, huge decision to make for somebody to be like, oh yeah, go ahead and do that. Like you have to have a ton of trust. And by the way, a lot of faith to trust somebody enough to go put that kind of debt without having any sort of, I wouldn't say not having a plan, but without knowing if it's going to work. And so for us, a lot of people are raised that, talking about money and talking about finances and having those open conversations are kind of like this weird, like, subject. And for us, like, we've always just been very open with each other about our goals and aspirations. And like, we talk about what we want out of our life. This is our only life that we get to live. And so it's so important that we are open to supporting each other's goals and dreams and aspirations. And so for her, she knew that I was capable of so much more, which is the absolute best thing that you want in somebody who's supporting you, is you want to believe in them. So I believed in her in everything that she wants to do and everything that she continues to desire. And she believes in me too. And sometimes you need that person to believe in you to really have the belief in yourself. I barely believed enough in myself to make that decision, but she encouraged me to do it. And that's really, really important when it comes to having a significant other. You must support them. If you don't have that support, I can tell you things are going to get a lot more difficult. And tough love, and she called me out when things weren't going that well, and she still does to this day, and I appreciate it. Very open-minded about, feedback, right?
Yeah, that I love that. Those are some great pointers right there for anybody out there listening. And so let me backtrack a little bit. So the 20,000, I mean, can you go back to that moment, Michael, and just explain, like, maybe the fear or just what were the feelings like at that time? And it's safe to say it paid off, more than paid off, right? But at that time, because I with the book that I wrote, The Power of Being Uncomfortable, I talk about how the unknown is what's basically the fear that we have, right? And I guarantee you, if I were to ask you right now, hey, would you pay another 20,000 for what you've done so far out of that? You would do it again because you have actually shown that it paid off. So, but at that moment, you're just taking a chance, and that's a big chance right there, man. Especially kind of not knowing. So if you could touch a little bit on how was that moment like?
Yeah. So, the habits simultaneously started happening as I took that risk, I would say. And for me, I thought about it. Okay, I spent the 20,000 on college. I can spend the $20,000 because the ROI for this should be significantly more. If they're telling me I can make $20,000 on a deal. And so the whole time, all I kept thinking about is, how can I get this first deal as soon as possible so I can get myself out of debt? And as hard as it was, Billy, during that time where I knew I had all this debt, Like it was weighing down on me. I was just trying to unbury myself at that time. So with that came a lot of anxiety. I was scared. I was worried that I was going to let down my family, all of these fear mongering type situations, but I didn't focus all my attention on it. I started studying what these people in this book were talking about. And I started focusing on, okay, these people tell me that I need to have a why. I need to know why I'm doing this. And it needs to be so deep. And Dean talks about this in this book, that if you feel like quitting, you won't quit, because your why should make you cry. And the why that I had was my family and my new daughter that was on her way. And every time I started thinking about the struggle, it just completely, I just squashed it with the why and me wanting to succeed. And so I focused on, okay, not only the why, but what's the vision like for this? Like, why do I want to do this? Here's where I'm at, but this is where I'm going. I'm going that way. And this is the vision that I'm going to accomplish. And that's what I was focused on. And if only I could make this much money every single month, I could free myself from the job and get out of this situation. And it was about a year later when I actually did that. And it wasn't easy, because about 6.5 months of struggling, it took me to get that first deal. And by the way, my first deal was $20,000. And it changed my life, and it changed the way I thought about money, the way it felt. And if you're watching this and you're struggling to get your first deal, or if you're starting your business, just know that if you don't quit, you can't fail. Just keep going. You just got to keep going. But those were a lot of the emotions, man, that I was experiencing. And I was on my knees, man. I was praying. I was just begging and putting out all the efforts that I could. I was hitting the pavements. I was knocking doors. I was cold calling people. I was literally up at 4 a.m. I was going to sleep at 10. Like, I was not getting any sleep, and it wasn't healthy, man. But I can tell you that I had to go through that to become the person that I feel like I became today, and still becoming, because it's a lifelong adventure.
Yeah, I love that. So I love that whole story, bro. It's so inspirational, because the truth is that most people aren't going to take that chance. Most people aren't going to pay that much. And that's why I love your story, because you took that chance, and just having the support from your wife was just kind of like a stamp. I truly believe that. And you made some great points about that. So moving on. So you the first deal that you made that you got paid for was 20,000. So that's awesome right there. That obviously took care of that in a sense. What happened after that? So with everything that you learned in that, with the 20,000, how did you start implementing those things?
Yeah. So let me just backtrack just a little bit. I jumped the gun a little bit on the first deal, because the first deal actually didn't happen. I had a contract on a property that I found fall through. And why that was so important is because at that time I was like, what am I going to do? Like, my wife actually started asking me, like, hey, is this going to work? It's been 4 months. Are you're doing everything that they say they're going to do? Is this going to work? And I actually got a call one day, and this is important because I didn't expect this call, but it was the company who sold me this mentorship. And they said, hey, how are things going? And I was like, you know what? I got to be honest with you. It's not working. Like what I'm doing currently right now is just not working. And I was making a lot of offers on the MLS, and I was just making lowball offers, and I wasn't really following up with them, and it wasn't working at all. And they're like, okay, well, what would it look like to have somebody, one-on-one to work with, to help you, so maybe this can work for you. And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, what do you even mean by that? And like, well, we have a one-on-one mentorship, and what if you want to invest in that, it's going to be $25,000. And I know what you guys are probably thinking right now. You're probably thinking, oh man, is this guy really that stupid? You know what? When people are in an emotional situation, sometimes they make decisions like that. And I did make the decision to put another 25 grand on credit cards before I got my first deal. And so I was in 45K. So I think that's important, because as if 20 wasn't enough. Now I just put another 25 onto it because I wasn't motivated enough the way it was, apparently. So that's important because I found it. I'm like, well, what do I need to do? This isn't working. They're like, well, you start going to, the real estate investment meetups. I went to a real estate investment meetup. I met a guy and he was helping newbies get started. And I'm like, hey, I'm a newbie. Like I've already spent 45,000. What can you do for me? Like, I need help. And he's like, well, I used to be a mentor for Rich Dad Poor Dad and his group, and so I'll show you the ways. I'm like, okay, what's that look like? And so he's like, it's $2,500. I'm like, okay, so cool. 20, 25, 2,500. That's nothing. Let's keep going. So I got 47.5 racked up on the credit cards, and that doesn't account for any marketing. And we found this fourplex, man, and that fourplex happened to be on Zillow, and I was quick. And we went there and he helped me negotiate the deal. And that was my first actual deal. But that $20,000 immediately paid down that line of credit. And that was 6.5 months into the education, 6.5 months. So I want people to know that it didn't happen that fast. And there were a lot of mistakes, but I feel like I digressed. Did I answer your question, Billy? I kind of got really
no. That there's so many great points there because I mean, like you said, if 20 wasn't enough, and it makes me think, Michael, of just because if you think about it, like obviously it's easier to say it now, right? Like the 47.5 that you put in without having any money at that time. That's what people pay at 100,000 to go to college, right? And I'm sure you've probably heard this over and over. So can you explain a little bit of just investing in yourself? Because I know you do some coaching as well as I do some coaching, and I know the importance because I also have coaches and I pay other people. So if you could touch a little bit on just that side of things for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. So investing in yourself is number one. It's a cheat code for speed. So think about it this way. Could I have kept doing what I was doing had I not gotten the additional guidance? How long would I have done that for? And I could have done it for years. And I know it's sad, but like I know people who went through the same exact program as I did, but maybe they didn't seek additional guidance or make that extra investment into that one-on-one mentor, whoever. And they're still struggling and they're still trying to get their first deal. And after a certain point in time, I can't imagine doing what I was doing, working my full-time job. I can't imagine. I would have killed myself. And it sounds over exaggerating, but I seriously, guys, I wasn't getting any sleep. Like I knew that my clock was ticking. I had 3 months before my daughter came into the world. We were barely making our expenses at that point in time. I paid for speed with the idea that the return on investment was going to far exceed what I spent at that time. And I can tell you that it 100% did. And it always has. And every time I make an investment into myself, it just keeps compounding. And ever since then, I can tell you I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on myself and on our business and investing. And things just keep getting easier, man. It's kind of crazy how it works. It just keeps getting easier.
No, and I love that. You made such a great point is that obviously at this point, you have all that money that you've invested in yourself, and it's very important to invest in yourself. Whether it's seminars and the coaching and everything, because there, one of the little stories that I would like to tell is, there was a millionaire speaking and there was a billionaire in the building that was going to speak after the millionaire. Well, the billionaire, guess what he was doing while the millionaire was speaking? Taking notes. And it's important for people to understand that because education never stops. No matter how far you get, once you stop education, then I truly believe you start dying. That's when you're kind of giving up in life. And especially for people listening that maybe might have gone down the college route and, all that good stuff. And they're doing it now currently. It's something for you to think about, just, and even if maybe real estate is not your thing or whatever, at least educate yourself. There's more to learn about yourself. We don't even know ourselves, Michael. Like that's what's crazy is, how many people actually look at themselves in the mirror and really ask yourself, hey, who am I? What does this guy want? What do I want out of life? And I think those are the questions that people need to ask themselves, and you only do that by educating your mind. So I love that you brought that up. To move forward, you mentioned that the 47,500 that you put down, it didn't include marketing. And I think we can talk a lot about marketing with you. I've seen you on commercials, on TV commercials. I've seen billboards, all kinds of great stuff. So if you could touch a little bit on just how important marketing is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it, right? Like kind of like the investment in yourself, what's the return on investment with that? And for marketing, you either have time or you make the resources, right? A lot of those are kind of interchanging, right? In the beginning, I had a lot of time, so I didn't have as much money invested into marketing. But as I got my first deal, you asked about what I did with that $20,000. I didn't forget about the fact that I was trying to build a business. I actually took some of that money, and this is for anybody who's wanting to invest in themselves, is don't just go buy a new car. Don't go, do something crazy with the money. Invest it back into your business. And so I just really nerded out on marketing, man. And what I found is there's levers to pull when it comes to real estate. If people don't know what you do, whether that's, like the time of calling and building those connections in your network, or you're putting a message out there saying, hey, this is what I do, and I can track that. It's very measurable. So for marketing, the way I see it as it is a return on ad spend, return on investment of that dollar spent. So in the beginning, I was sending out some postcards. I had $500 from the credit line that I was comfortable with, and I'd send out that postcard, and I would pray that I would get that person to call me so I could make a deal. And in the beginning, the deals were $3,000. My $500 made me $3,000. Cool. I'll go put that back into marketing and keep that train rolling. And eventually, it was just like I saw that this was working and it was duplicatable, and I just kept turning the lever, and I kept turning the lever, and I kept turning it up and up and up, and finding out, okay, well, this marketing channel gives me this much of a return on investment. Cool. Now I can feel confident about every dollar I put in. Hopefully it's like an ATM machine that spits back out 4. For TV, I put this many dollars in and it spits me back out this many dollars. And so you just figure out what does what, and you just keep feeding the machine. It's a machine, and that's what we've created at Rocket Homebuyers. We've created a marketing machine where we feel really confident in our ability to help sellers in their situations. So we want people to know about us. And the only way they know about us is if we spend money on marketing for them to know about us. So that is my thought process when it comes to marketing.
All right, bro. You dropped some fire there with marketing. You're definitely the definition of the loudest dog gets fed, right? And I truly believe that in marketing, that's what it's all about. Also, it reminds me of Grant Cardone. He always says that the best known beats best, and I live behind that, right? Like with everything that I do, it's like, hey, I might not be the best podcaster or the best author or the best rapper or the best real estate investor, but I'm gonna be known. And I think when people think of you for that solution, like you said, I think that, and you've clearly made it a point that Michael buys houses. I mean, we all know that. We all know that. And to kind of funnel in a little bit more on that marketing, what would you say has been, for the real estate stuff, the best channel that you've kind of learned that has paid off the most dividends?
Oh man, this is a tough one because it's ever changing, right? I'd like to say that there's one channel that's just always blown everything out of the water, but it's just simply not the case. You know, in the beginning, like you said, I was Michael buys houses. I could afford bandit signs and my time to go put those things out, and it got me some deals. You know, all of it works, but at the end of the day, you know, what works the best for us is anything digital, anything online advertising. And in the beginning, it was exchanging time for money and pounding the pavements and the phones and the very guerrilla marketing tactics, which absolutely work. And you can do that on a lower budget. But anymore, it feels a lot better, and it feels so much better of a business when you have people who call you. And with the digital stuff, I'm referring to like Google ads or Facebook ads, some sort of digital advertising where somebody is going about their day and they realize that I need to sell my house, and they either search it online and we pop up and they click it, or they Google search and we're there when they're ready to sell, they call us, right? And it's fantastic because we're prepared, we have a team, and we're ready to help. And it's a lot easier doing a business with people who are ready to do business than trying to talk somebody into it. So digital advertising all the way.
That's deep right there. You know, that you made such a great point. That it's better when people call you, and because you're both looking for the same thing, right? Like the homeowner wants to get rid of the house and you want to buy it. So what better way than to just directly get it over with? I think that's important. People forget that the transaction, that's all it is. They want to sell as much as you want to buy, right? And when you literally funnel it to where these people are just calling you directly, I mean, that's awesome. And what I love about your campaign, Michael, is that you've always put the customer first, right? If you could touch a little bit about that, because I've seen how the customers have been happy with the transactions and dealing with you guys, and you are solving a problem, because not everybody has the money to fix a property, for example, to put it in the regular market with an agent.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, man, it's the most important thing for me. Number one, it's just who I am. I want to make sure that I have a fantastic reputation. You know, I don't care I don't care how many deals we do. At the end of the day, if something isn't sitting right, I want it to be taken care of, and I want it to resolve, and I want everyone to be 100% happy. And so it was so important, especially in the beginning, and for anyone watching this, like, you need to be giving somebody the best experience. Like, who thinks of somebody giving a review when they sell their house? We get reviews from people about the experience when they sell a house to us. And we do that because other people need to know about it. If I'm looking at home buying companies and I see one that doesn't have any reviews, and I see one that has 75-star reviews, who do you think that I'm going to trust? So for us, that was everything. And, you know, there's a couple ways to do business, man. I mean, there's the fly-by-night stuff where you can do basically this business without a reputation. 100%. I know people who do it and it works for them, and that's fantastic. But I like to put myself out there so where people can do their own homework. And we encourage every single person who we ever do business with to do their homework on us. We're on the Better Business Bureau. We're on all these platforms, and we want them to go research. And we hope that they do the research with whoever they're working with, because I do. If I'm going somewhere, I want to know that where I'm spending my money or who I'm doing business with, I can trust. And so it's everything, absolutely everything.
Man, that's powerful right there. And if we can work off of that right there, Michael, what if somebody wants to get in this business? Let's say that right now they have $1,000. What would you suggest them doing?
All right, so you have $1,000. I would suggest that if you're in a local market, you go drive the streets and you find properties that are showing signs of distress. You focus on the motivation. Who's more motivated than the person who has boarded up windows, the grass hasn't been cut in months, and maybe the roof is is completely just ruined, right? Those were the types of houses that I was looking for when I had a negative budget, right? And so you write those property addresses down, you go find out who the owners are, and you can send them a simple postcard, or you can look up their phone number and just simply call them. And it's a numbers game. You got to talk to a lot of people. You've got to call and send messages to a lot of people before you find somebody who's willing to have a conversation. And then you better hope that you learn how to sell and solve that problem really quick. Because if you don't, there might be somebody who's very good at it that will a lot quicker than you. And so just know that you can do this with little to no money, and that's free, by the way. You said $1,000. If you're calling them, that's 100% free. If you look up their information on the public records, and then fastpeoplesearch.com, you can find everyone's phone number on there. So, it's that's one way. For other ways, if you want to do it in bulk, you can definitely buy lists. You can buy data without having to go drive the streets, and you can focus on the motivation and find people who are in situations, obviously people who are going through maybe a death in the family, divorce, or any certain situation like that typically has them selling their house. And of course, the best, obviously you're good at this, is networking. That's the best, and that's free too. So yeah, man.
So you just saved $1,000 to somebody listening. You just gave him all this free game, man, and it's so true. I love that. What if somebody wants to buy a list? What would you recommend for buying a list, so that way they could just go straight to it?
Yeah, so I think a good list, it's obviously there's so many of them, but if you can find a vacant list, that's going to save you a lot of time from driving the streets. So vacant houses, that's one list. I liked a lot in the beginning of what you consider absentee homeowners, people who don't live in the home, so they live out of state, and it's likely a rental, or it's likely a liability for them. So those tend to be more motivated sellers if you can get on their radar.
There you go, man. And where can somebody, because obviously we've heard of the prop stream, and if you have anywhere else that you would recommend somebody listening, where else can they get these lists from?
Yeah. So, the county, that's free data. So go to the county and, find out the city has a list of properties that you can get access to. And, there's certain situations that you want to focus on in that. Otherwise, resources like batchleads.com, batchleads.io, I think, is where we pull quite a bit of data from. And yeah, it's pretty inexpensive to find the motivation.
Love it, man. And I want to talk a little bit about expanding, because you've obviously, again, in the local market, we all know you, but now you're in different markets. What does it take for one to do that? What were the steps that you took to now you're buying in different states, and and just even cities in Nebraska? There's a lot of people, even myself, that I've kind of just stuck to my local market. But what was that like? What are some pointers that you could give somebody to expand to California if they want, to Texas, and I know you're in Florida and stuff like that?
Well, first and foremost, it's massive imperfect action. We don't know what we don't know what it's going to be like to expand. We're talking about buying houses here. There's a lot that goes into that. So for us, it was always continuously building out our system and our processes like we were going to sell this business someday. And so think of like the McDonald's franchise. We wanted to create a system that was so duplicatable that we could basically hand our owner's manual along with all the systems over to somebody else and say, here you go. Here's all of the people that you'll need. Here's all the process, and here's all the system, and go ahead and just plug this in literally, and you can do business. And so that was what we worked on a lot in the beginning. And it's changed a ton as we expanded. So as we grew, you run into new states and the way they do things, and it might be different. And so just honestly, a lot of learning lessons, a lot of challenges. And the biggest piece that I think a lot of people may not quite understand is how much bandwidth, how many actually people it takes to run an operation like that. We're pushing 10 employees now, and I was talking to our controller yesterday, who oversees like all of our accounting, and like you just have different problems. You have to deal with we have employees in multiple states, so we have to start dealing with state income tax in all these states. We have to deal with unemployment insurance. It's like a different level of problems, and it's not for everyone. There's a lot that goes into it. And some days I'm like, man, what did I get myself into? Honestly, it's a lot, but it's rewarding and it's fun, because last month we did a deal in Florida. We did a deal in Lawrence, Kansas. We're doing a deal in Marion, Iowa. We're doing a deal in Las Vegas. We've done deals in Colorado. We're doing these deals all over the place. And it's because we've gotten really good at marketing our message out there. And we got a property under contract in Oklahoma right now. And we've got a deal under contract in Texas. So I say all this to basically say that it's possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But you have to have the right systems and the team in place to make it all happen. And there are going to be some learning curves and failures, but it's just another lesson. And again, like I said, it just keeps getting easier. The more we fail, the more we learn. So that's a long answer to your question there, my friend.
Man, no, that you gave some nugs right there, Michael. And massive and perfect action. I love that, dude. That's awesome. I'm gonna get that tattooed next. I love that. So one thing that you also talked about was kind of, once you get to doing new things, obviously, and one of my favorite quotes is, new levels will bring new devils, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're experiencing, and that's what it takes. Unfortunately, that's anything that's new, that you're always gonna go through that. And to kind of go with all that there, to wrap it in one bundle there. I mean, it sounds like you have no fear, Michael. What is something that Michael fears? What is fear to you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been scared this whole time. And I know it doesn't seem like it, but I've been literally freaked out every step of the way, because there's different levels to it. And so, what I think is just important is you surround yourself with the right people who are thinking a lot bigger than you, and what you thought was scary before becomes a lot less scary, because that there's this whole world out there that's completely another level. But what I'm most scared about, man, is just, looking back at the end of the life. I'm on my deathbed, and I didn't go for it. I'm afraid of being completely average and, wishing that I would have. It freaks me out, man, thinking about that and not giving my family the life that they deserve. It's those types of things that make me scary. So everything else that might seem scary, doing these things that I'm talking about, it doesn't even faze me, because I know what the vision is, and I know the mission that we're on, and I know that we're here to create an impact and change lives. And that is literally my purpose, is to be able to help others do the same. And so fear, it's there, but I'm tunnel vision, man. I'm just looking ahead. There's no looking back. Whatever happens, happens. And I know I'm doing this from the best intentions that I possibly can.
That's deep right there. I love that answer, Michael. And as if your whole story is not enough, obviously with my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable, I always like to ask, what is one way that you got uncomfortable that paid off? And besides your whole story, if we could touch, I mean, because your story has been nothing but that. But if you could just go back to a moment or something that paid off after you got uncomfortable, which you have many.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, for me, this is going to sound weird for people who are watching this because it just takes practice to figure out how to get good at something. But I was horrifically scared of public speaking. When I was in high school, I absolutely hated it. And I think it's pretty common to care about what other people think. But for me, getting out of my comfort zone with that in itself was huge. And so earlier this year, I spoke on a stage in front of 100 real estate investors. And that right there was a huge breakthrough for me because, as we all know, we all have our own message, and I want to be able to tell people about it to encourage them to go out and live their dreams too. And so speaking on that stage and telling my story to 100 other real estate investors who were right where I was 4 years ago, that was a breakthrough for me. And I'm excited to do more of that as I grow on my adventure.
I love it. And I could talk to you all day, Michael. It's time to wrap it up, unfortunately. But I just want to make it a point that just seeing your story is very inspirational. I mean, and I always go back to that one day when I met you, and you were kind of just showing a property, and maybe you were already in that debt, but you had this. You could tell you were onto something because whatever it is that you said you were going to do, you did it. And, we've done business together and just seeing your story, I mean, leaving Lincoln to now living in Vegas, which is what you wanted to do. You're basically living life in your own terms. So, this show also, I want to show the appreciation and give you your flowers for the inspiration and motivation that you are giving others, because also, I mean, you're helping a lot of people now too. And it doesn't go unnoticed. So keep that up, man. You're doing awesome. I don't see that fear that you had. I think you're gonna be good, man. I love what you're doing. And to wrap things up, I always like to ask the same questions at the end of the show. And the first one that I have for you is, if you were to look back at your younger self, what would be some advice that you would give yourself?
Yeah. So this really kind of parlays into what my biggest fear is, and that's to find someone or something that gets you excited that you can go do. I wish I would have heard about real estate when I was 18, right? But I didn't, and it's totally fine. I went through what I went through on my journey, but it would just be to seek guidance a lot faster. Like, seek somebody that you aspire to be, and don't be afraid to reach out to them. I'm sure we're all kind of trying to figure out what our purpose is at a certain point in life, and you're like, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, just put yourself out there and don't be afraid to take risk. And for me, I would tell myself to just to find that guidance, find that mentor, and just go for it, and go after it. And so that's what I would tell my younger self.
I love that answer, man. And if there's a 3-step formula to success, and if you do these 3 things, you're not going to fail, you're going to be successful. What are the 3 things?
All right, this is good, man. So I think the first thing is, as we talked a lot about, and you and I are big on this, is mindset. You've got to get your mindset right first and foremost. And step number 2 is create a plan, set a goal, have a vision for what are you even doing, right? What is the plan? You have to have a plan, and you have to have goals to aspire. And then step number 3 is do it. Go for it. It's massive imperfect action. You got to go for it. So don't be afraid to fail. Just take action, whether if it's comfortable or not. It's not going to be comfortable. And so,
I love that, man.
Yep.
I'm telling you that's my new tattoo. I love it. And
Man, I'm starting to believe that you're going to get one of these tattoos here.
all of a sudden, I send you a picture of that'd be awesome. Maybe while I'm in Vegas while you're there.
Oh, shoot. That doesn't stay in Vegas, though, if you get one of those.
There you go. And actually, you becoming a Raiders fan, I see. Is that a factual thing?
Yeah, I live like a mile from their practice stadium. So when you drive past it enough and it's in the air, you kind of just, it starts to get to you. So I don't have a pro team. So I'm like, you know what? I can support the Raiders. And we just went to the game you saw last week.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun, man. That stadium is pretty cool. So
yeah, I love it, man. Now I like you more, Michael. Now you're a Raiders fan, man.
Yes, sir.
And the last question that I have for you is, if you were to write a book, what would be the theme or the title?
Yep. Man, I feel like I answered this question before. Know your why. As simple as that sounds, if somebody can dig deep enough to figure out why they're on this earth or why they exist, everything else comes right into place. And you wake up not just, oh man, it's Monday, I gotta get out of bed and I gotta go to work. Now you get out of bed, you jump out of bed before your alarm and you're excited. And if you know your why, that changes the game 100%. And so I could talk a lot about that. And as simple as it sounds, Dean Graziosi talks about it in that book that we talked about, Millionaire Success Habits, seven levels deep exercise. Everybody should do that because it'll tell you a lot about yourself.
And what is one book, Michael, that you're currently reading right now that our audience can maybe look into, or just a recent one?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm always reading. I'm looking around. I've probably bought over 100 books in the last 3 years, and I'm not even exaggerating. I didn't own a book 5 years ago, but I've probably bought well over 100 of them. So it's really hard to pick, just because everyone's on their adventure. But right now, I mean, on my desk, I'm reading a book about how to build your $100 million real estate portfolio. It's a guy by the name of Manny Koshbin. So, that's a book that I'm reading right now. It's how to build your $100 million real estate portfolio.
Love it. And one question that I want to ask you, Michael, to just wrap everything up, where's your portfolio at right now? Because I know we've talked about it a lot, that every deal that you've wholesale, you basically wish you would keep. But obviously you're running a wholesale business as well, so it's definitely understandable. But what does your portfolio look like right now, your personal one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now, and this is where, like you said, I've wholesaled way too much. Right now, I think we're somewhere around the 30 some doors mark. And what that consists of is, I have a majority with a partner, but I have an Airbnb personally. And we're just kind of cherry picking the single family rentals. And we have a 12-plex, we have a couple duplexes, and the rest are single family. And so that's what it looks like right now. And very grateful, what we've been able to do over the last few years, and have a lot of aspirations to own a lot more doors, because that's where the real wealth is built. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Love it, man. Yeah, that's nothing to laugh about, man. That's a powerful portfolio right there. That's definitely big. And like I said, the whole wholesale thing, it's like, I mean, that's your business. That's your baby right there. So keep on doing that, man. And to let everybody know where they can find you, if you could let us know where they can find you, and also if you could let us know a little bit about what you're doing now with your show and just everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check me out on Instagram. It's Michael McDonald REI. You can also find me at michaelmcdonaldrei.com. However, for anybody interested in real estate, I want to give you guys a free training resource if you want to take advantage of it. I've started, like Billy said, I've started coaching other real estate investors. And so right now we've created the virtualmillionaires.com, and the virtualmillionaires.com is really about how to start and scale your real estate business. And so in that, I've done a free training. I also do group coaching and very select on one-on-one for people who are extremely serious. But if you're interested in that, you can definitely check out thevirtualmillionaires.com and check out the free training.
Love it, man. Well, everybody out there listening, make sure you guys check out Michael and all the powerful stuff he has going on. Make sure you follow me at the Billy. It's Billy the Kid, at Billy the Kid. And also follow the $1 Million Hustle Pod on Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube and anywhere else podcasts are available. And let's get it, baby. Vámonos. I'm doing good as if I joined the Illuminati. And some don't like that. They hate that they see you smile. As if I haven't been hustling, it's been a while. Gotta put in the work if you wanna shine. I want it all and I'm coming for what's mine. Some call me greedy, bitch, I call it ambition. Some call me selfish, bitch, I call it motivation. Different levels of thinking and we both right. But my mindset is on growth with the future bright. Close-minded people mad at me that I'm speaking facts. Or maybe could it be that I'm getting racks? Open your mind, gotta open it to receive. I'm always 10 toes for what I believe. Close-minded people mad at me